In his bed that night, Jay looked out the window that was only inches from his face. His sideways view of the yard outside included a partial view of the chicken house about 75 feet away. He drifted off to sleep with no particular concern for the syncopated waves of colored light emanating from the ordinarily darkened chicken house. Tomorrow, he thought to himself, tomorrow we will know your secret. As the sun broke over the railroad tracks, Wayne was first to recognize its coming. A new day with new revelations was out there waiting to be enjoyed. He vaulted over his two bedmates, younger brothers Richard and Lyndon. They were considered too young for the box adventure and the serious deportment that it required. In the bed, though, next to his, Wayne saw that Wes and Jay were still hard at work sawing logs. Wes's sleep sounds could more accurately be described as a chainsaw through barbed wire. He was not a quiet sleeper. "Get up, you two," Wayne said. "We got apple butter to eat and magic boxes to explore. Come on, get on up." Jay was still lying in the same position as when he drifted off to sleep the night before. As he opened his eyes in response to Wayne's admonition, he could still see the corner of the chicken house. No lights were visible. Did he imagine it? In no time, all the family breakfast assembly was complete as the boys filled their assigned seats. As usual, nobody dared to reach for any food until Mama and the girls had been seated. And then 2 more steps left. Daddy had to say the blessing first, and then he had to be served. Planer mill foremen need to arrive at work earlier than the mill hands for 2 reasons. First, to keep track of who came to work, and second, to set up and turn on all the milling equipment for the 7:30 a.m. start time. At last, all were seated. Daddy offered up the blessing for the hot, steaming, odoriferous breakfast before us. Mouths began to water, and Daddy's words were lost on the 5 knothead boys. They were capable of entertaining only one thought at a time. Their one thought was spent on a mental picture of how good one of those biscuits was going to be with that big old jar of apple butter. The jar, by the way, was strategically placed right in the middle of the spread of cat head biscuits, milk gravy, dry salt, bacon, and eggs. Whew. The blessing came to an end. That phase of the waiting period was finished. Daddy was going slow for some reason. Maybe he was running early and he enjoyed the luxury of taking his time to fill his plate. Maybe he just wanted to prolong the punishment for last night's backdoor disturbance. Whatever was in his mind, the result was this. The boys were beginning to feel hunger lust-worthy of a starving third world country. The situation had reached critical stage. "All right, boys, I want you to wait until your mother and your sisters have had a turn before you touch that apple butter. When they are done, you may begin, and you must take turns by age. Youngest first. Do you all understand me?" Daddy said. A collective, if not enthusiastic, affirmative was returned by the boys. Wayne was satisfied with his pronouncement. Being the middle child of 5 boys, his status was the same either way. His only concern was whether the younger boys would be slow, naturally as Daddy was, on purpose. The moment arrived. To lend some civility to the situation, Daddy had instructed the boys to get themselves ready by securing and preparing a biscuit of choice. The ploy was designed specifically to minimize the ensuing chaos certain to occur if the boys were left to initiate what probably would resemble a shotgun start at a fishing tournament. Mama, ever the caretaker, passed on her turn and handed the jar to Wilma. Wilma followed Mama's example and passed the unopened jar to Janice. Not to be outdone, Janice handed the jar to Lyndon. Finally, the jar was in the grasp of the boys. Soon they would taste that unmistakable brown-cooked goodness of apple mush laced with a generous helping of cinnamon and sugar. The youngest child in any family is very often referred to as the baby of the family. This was Lyndon's lot. The baby of the family enjoys certain benefits not afforded the other siblings. Of course, with benefits come responsibilities. For instance, you may get first dibs when the apple butter is doled out. But when the baby has 4 hungry apple butter junkie brothers watching his every move, he can get a little jumpy. Lyndon steadied the jar under his right arm like a running back protecting the football. He began to twist the lid, applying as much force as his little hand would allow. No luck. He began again, this time using his whole body as leverage. Wes started to laugh first, and then was quickly joined by the others at the sight of Lyndon working so hard to open the lid on that new jar. The boys momentarily forgot about their hunger lust as they reached guffaw level thanks to little Lyndon's muscleman display. Wayne, like the others, had his biscuit buttered and ready to take his turn with that jar. He absent-mindedly took a bite out of the biscuit, and it was so good he took another. Still busy laughing at Lyndon's troubles, Wayne forgot to adjust his biscuit in hand after that first yummy bite. That explains why he bit his own finger. It may or may not explain what followed. Wayne's pain presented itself in the form of a violent scream, jerk, and flip maneuver. Taken separately, they might not have come to any consequence. Taken together, the ensuing chain reaction could easily have been predicted. Wayne's biscuit went airborne and bounced with a thunk against Richard's forehead. From there, it careened in a new direction, back towards the table. The biscuit continued on rolling and hopping its way across just as the biscuit was about to find the table's ledge. Lyndon, now tired out with his energy reserve spent, set the jar down. There it was, sitting precariously on the edge, right in line with the incoming biscuit missile. The older 4 boys reacted at the same time, reaching for the prize, hoping to save it from an early demise. Though it was a valiant effort, they managed only to cancel each other out. The evidence of this was in the twisted pile of youthful humanity was forming right on top of the table. Mama, who had started the dishwashing process, had her back to most of this drama and was not privy to the climatic scene behind her. She heard a collective gasp laced with a few mumbled mild expletives, followed by the unmistakable sound of a glass jar with a full load of apple butter crashing onto the floor. Janice and Wilma looked at Mama with innocent faces, indicating that none of this was their doing. On the floor, Mama saw the starburst pattern of a brown glop that sparkled prettily as it centered thanks to a random arrangement of broken glass shards. The boys brought their gaze slowly upward to finally meet the eyes of Mama. She said nothing, at least not verbally. What she did do was place the knuckles of her dishwater wet hands on her hips and stare. It only lasted a few seconds, but then came the look that could last you a lifetime. Mama's eyebrows were bilingual. One raised eyebrow would likely mean, "More input, please. I don't quite understand the situation before me." If the look showed one brow up and one brow down, it translated loosely to, "You need to retain the services of a good lawyer." That double brow look was hanging there like an ominous black cloud over the boys, even as they continued to reach out for the prize now gone. Breakfast was over. The punishment was done. The boys had finished cleaning up the mess, all of it, before they realized the biggest punishment was still to come. However, self-inflicted, there would be no apple butter on the table for at least 2 weeks. With one biscuit in each hand, the boys went out to meet the day.